Welcome fellow Beastians, I'm Dorapka the Gaming Beast, and this is Dorapka's Dungeon, the show where I talk about tabletop RPGs. And today I've been inspired by a couple of people from the YouTube RPG Brigade, like Matthew Dawkins, Tim Harper, and other people who said we're talking about the 10 RPGs that I wanted to play. So I thought, why not chime in, right? And say also that. Now, a lot of these games I would like to run to, but most of the times when I get to play RPGs, I usually am the DM, right? So for me, I'm always motivated to play an RPG because it's much more fun to play an RPG, especially in a good one, with a good group and a good DM. You know, it's never good to be in a shitty group, but you know, I'm not going to get into that. The point is, before we start. Do the death mode doom fellow Beastians. Yep, just to wet the whistle a little bit before we really get into the meat and potatoes of this video here. Now in no particular order I'm going to start, and I'm going to start off with a game that I actually own in physical form, and that is Shadowrun. Yes, this is the 3rd edition. This is actually a harmadik kiadás, which is Hungarian, means 3rd edition. Yes, this is the Hungarian book. It's a nice, thick book. This is the core book, and it's pretty nice and everything. I'll get into that. The paper quality is not the best, but it's okay to keep the price down. Basically, I wanted to run Shadowrun. Well, I wanted to play it, to be honest, and I did play it once in high school. But that was like one session, and then the DM lost interest because there was one player that derailed the game, in a sense, in his mind, because his character literally was called Billy Boom. Okay, so I made a typical, street samurai. For those who don't know, that's basically like a cyborg warrior, and you're like, this is like in the future, but you got like magic and magical beings that return, but you got also the cyberpunk high tech, and you got the corporations. And usually you're like the runners, the Shadowrunners, who are like, whatever, you know, you're trying to gain stuff from other corporations and all this stuff. And that's where you do your adventuring, your fighting, and so on. So I make a character, we start the game, excuse me, and and one guy, I remember him, he was an interesting character. He's a character I gotta talk about because I played other sessions with him. And it was quite interesting, but his character was literally called Billy Boom, and he focused his character totally on he was like a demolitions expert, and his entire shtick was bombs. He basically had bombs everywhere, and he could control them to blow up himself and everybody else. So it was, yeah, very PC, I know. But it's role-playing games. You got crazy characters all the time, and he basically started the game. It was really fun. The DM put in a lot of effort. We started interacting and everything. I don't remember 100%, but I do remember Billy Boom, and I do remember that this was the first and the only game of Shadowrun I have ever played, and basically. He got in an argument with one of the NPCs in the game, and then he basically threatened to blow himself up and everybody else, basically the entire party, in effect ending the game right then and there. Now I do remember that he didn't got to do that, and then he was basically in game, he was put to jail, and we decided to play another session, but that never happened for one reason or another, you know. And yeah, so that was the story of Billy Boom. And that was the only game of Shadowrun I ever played. It was not a very long game, and I really didn't get into it, and I would really like to get into it. I would really like to play it before I run it. And I even bought the book, for crying out loud. I read it a ton and everything, and I haven't read it in a while. I just got a bunch of my old stuff from Hungary. And my brother came back and brought me a bunch of stuff. And yeah, so that's Shadowrun. I really like to play it. Again, if anybody's out there who wants to run one of these games and would like me as a player, then, you know, come ahead. You can see some of my stuff on my channel where I'm playing. I have a playlist now. Doraka plays tabletop RPGs or some shit like that. And of course, there's quite a few videos and also audio recordings on my website, www.gamingbeast.com. Shameless self-promotion, where you can listen to a lot of the RPG sessions that I ran. Not all of them yet, as you can ask Alex Swingle that it will take forever for me to upload all of them, but I will upload them, you know, with or without trading cards, Swingle. I know you're thinking that right there. That's for Alex Swingle. Okay, next game, number 9, Rifts. Oh yeah, and I have that one too, in physical form. Now I lost pretty much 9% of the viewership. Nah, I'm kidding. I'm sure you'll stay here to listen to my thoughts about Rifts. Look at this thing. I mean, just look at this. You gotta look a second thing. I mean, this book is filled with insanity. And look at this, you know? Pretty good condition too. But yeah, I would like to run this, well, I ran it actually. I ran it 6 times with a group, and it was pretty fun. The mechanics, they're not as bad as a lot of people say. The worst thing about the mechanics is that it's hard to find specific rules and specific, or even things that you should know. You have to really look for them, and actually, not just in the core book. Excuse me. There is also the Dungeon Master's Compendium, or something like that, where there's actually a lot of the rules that I think are important. Also, the rules are like, you know, where they always update the rules in every book. So the thing is that the rules work. They're not the best working rules I've seen out there. The worst thing about Rifts is probably character creation. It just takes a long time, and most of it is just, you know, the hardest part in Rifts is once you get past the character creation and you have a character, then Rifts can be actually pretty fun. Combat is not that hard once you know how it's done. And I actually, when I read through the rules, I actually took notes and shortened down what's basically I wrote down on one paper. How to shoot, how to do close combat, and how to roll skills, and how to do spells. And that's all you need, actually, if you really think about it. Because the cool thing, at least psionics and magic work the same way. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that. I'd like to play Rifts. I ran it, but I would like to play some crazy, super over-the-top character and just have like pretty much a munchkin the game, so to speak. And I'd really like to do that. If somebody is willing to run Rifts, you know, for me and a couple of other people, which the chances of that happening are not quite, because everybody agrees pretty much the setting is really cool, because it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's basically like the kitchen sink setting. Everything is there. You got your fantasy, sci-fi, it's in the far future, post-apocalyptic, you got dimension gates opening, anything literally can come through there. You know, from Homer Simpson to Cthulhu, you know, anything. You know, and probably will, depending on the DM, of course. But some people don't like that. They like very specific settings and everything. You know, like the Cthulhu, their Vampire the Masquerade, their D&D, their Faerun, and so on. So, I would like to play it, and I hope I will play it one day. And we'll see. You know, even just for a short, like, one shot or one or two games, it would be fun, I think. And I think it's worth giving a shot. I mean, there's much worse RPGs out there than Rifts. And Rifts in itself, the setting is really cool. The mechanics are workable. I'll say that. I'll be probably the nicest guy to the mechanics than anybody, but once you got your character sheet done, that's why there has been a project where somebody made a program, a character creation tool for Rifts, which it would be so cool if he would update. He's been working on it and it's not finished yet. I've tried out the demo, but if he gets it to work, to the point where you can just push a random button and make a random character for Rifts, then we're pretty much golden, you know. But yeah, I don't think that's Rifts. While Palladium is still, you know, they're pushing their product a lot, so I'm sure they're also playing and playtesting, and there is a core audience for Rifts that play and run Rifts. Again, it's the problem with role-playing games. It's a niche thing in a niche. It's a niche audience in a niche audience. Role-playing gamers are a niche audience in any kind of gaming, you know. And Rifts is even a niche audience in a niche audience. I mean, when you... what is probably the easiest game to find nowadays? Probably Pathfinder, Vampire, D&D, something. The really popular ones, you know. And you know, Rift is not exactly one of them. So I'm gonna wait and see what happens. But yeah. Okay, I'm gonna continue. Number 8, Godlike / Wild Talents. Now, why do I have here 2 games? Because they're essentially the same system and the same setting, only in different times and with some differences in the setting. Now, I've read and saw reviews about Godlike and Wild Talents. Let me just explain. Godlike and Wild Talents are both superhero RPGs with a very gritty setting and system. Godlike is set in World War II, where it's an alternate history where it's kind of a little bit like if it would be like the Marvel version of World War II, only grittier and less costumes, but still superpowers. Basically, you have like both the Axis and the Allies have been working to create superhuman soldiers of different degrees, some with flight, some with super strength, and so on, with different superpowers. And basically, the rules show you like you can do missions and like games set in this setting, and you can like fight the different soldiers and everything. You could basically make a Captain America version here, character here, or something like that, or even pretty much any kind of character set in a World War II setting. It would be like the golden age of comic books for DC and Marvel, where they were fighting the Nazis and so on, and Nazi supervillains like Baron von Strucker and the Red Skull, of course. There's the two that come to mind right away. Also the Hate Monger, who was a Hitler clone or something. It was, comic books are weird, I'll admit. Especially Golden and Silver Age. But yeah. Then you have the other one, which is Wild Talents. And Wild Talents is pretty much the same system with some changes, and it's set in the same universe but in modern day. Like, their superhero universe started in World War II, which is common with superhero universes. Sometimes they start earlier, but usually World War II is like the first generation of superheroes. And Wild Talents is basically superhero, that same universe now. How did the world change with superhumans being around? And there's another game that I would like to play and or run, which I cannot think the name for. Alternity? No. Anyway, it will come to mind after I did this video, and it's whatever. But yeah, Wild Talents. Now, what I would like to do is do a supers campaign using this system. For myself, I will do probably an original setting, because I usually prefer original settings, because then I have the freedom. Because if I do a set setting, then I gotta always like, especially if it's a popular setting, then you got rules lawyers and you got setting lawyers. You know, they will tell me what I can and cannot do. And if they're the type where, you know, they're gonna be belligerent about it and we're gonna argue about it, then that will suck. And I had that happen. But yeah, that's another story. Basically, I would like to play kind of a gritty supers game, where I would probably even like to play Wild Talents more. But Godlike would be interesting too for me. But Wild Talents would be cool because basically what I would do is just, I would do it like, you know, like what I would like to play is basically as a normal, I would make a normal character, a normal guy. And then one day wakes up and he has these superpowers, whatever they are. And how will that affect his life? What he will do with these superpowers? Will he be good? Will he be bad? Will it drive him insane and so much? So I played superhero games, but I ran most of the time, and I usually used Marvel superheroes, the face rip one. I know it's not everybody's favorite, but a lot of people do like it, and I play it to this day. And I actually ran a more grittier world with that, and it's you can use that system for that. But I want to use I think it's the Uni system that they use, I think. But I would like to try that game out, both of those. So if anybody would like to run that, that would be cool. Okay, let's move on. The next game might be a surprising one for a lot of people here on the YouTube RPG Brigade, is Vampire the Masquerade. Because a lot of people have been telling me and talking about Vampire the Masquerade and the World of Darkness and that setting, the old World of Darkness and the new World of Darkness, a lot. You know, of course, you know, Matthew Dawkins and a lot of other people. And there's of course, the game, what is it, the Living World of Darkness YouTube RPG experiment and its different offshoots. And I would like to play one, but I would probably like to play it more in a traditional role-playing game, like with sessions with a specific group. And I would like to. I mean, I did play one Bioshock game that Matthew ran, where we did use a modified, what is it, the storyteller system. So I'm even familiar a little bit with the system at this point. And I read a little bit about the books. I read a little bit the books. And if I would run it, there's actually a GURPS version of Vampire the Masquerade. I would probably use GURPS. But then again, probably a lot of the fans of that system wouldn't come because they like the story system or storyteller system more. But for me, I like GURPS because I played and ran GURPS for years in college, and I'm familiar with it. But I mean, the storyteller system seems like really workable and good. You know, I mean, it's not. It works and I like it. What I played of it, and it wasn't much. So I would really like to play the World of Darkness games. But I would like to start with the most famous one, the old World of Darkness vampire game. You know, if somebody's out there wants to do a game, I'm still considering, you know, joining the living game. I've been considering it for a while now, but I'm not quite sure if that's the right stuff for me. But I'm still thinking about it. So anyway, that's one of the games I'd like to play. Number 6 would be a sci-fi game, specifically a space opera game. Okay, something like Star Trek, Star Wars, Lensman, Last Starfighter. You know, because I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and especially in the 80s, especially after Star Wars, there was a lot of space opera movies, and TV shows and video games, and it became something that I really liked. You know, I loved giant ships blowing up other ships and guys with like ray guns and aliens. I loved that shit. That thing has kind of disappeared for the most part. It's coming a little bit back. Avatar, a lot of people will say Avatar, but you know, Avatar is good, but for example, I know it's a stupid reason, but they don't have fucking lasers. I mean, I love Starship Troopers too, but the only time they do use lasers is when with the practice guns. But to be fair, in Starship Troopers, it's more about the Space Marines, so that works there really well. And I do like Starship Troopers for what it is, the movie series. Now, I know it's not very close to the book, and I do want to read the book eventually, but I gotta finish a couple of other books before. But I like the movie Starship Troopers just like this, and the sequels are so-so. But although the last one, the Japanese CGI animated one, was pretty crazy. But anyway, I'm drifting off here again, as usual. A space opera game. I've been thinking, what would I like to play? Would I like to play Traveler? There's a ton of different space opera game settings for role-playing games, and there's also, you know, there's GURPS Traveler, there's the normal Traveler, and we have our Sean, aka Shoner, you know, Sean Driscoll. He's our local Traveler expert. So, you know, he would probably have a good answer for that. But I remember he ran a game, and you know, I know Alex Swingle played in it, and I actually wanted to play in that. You know, but anybody, you know, if you're up to playing a space opera game, I know probably you'll say Serenity, space western. You know what's a space western? I mean, Serenity is cool, Firefly is cool, okay, it is cool. I like the series, but I think it's a little bit overrated. Especially also when they're always throwing around Space Western. You know what's a Space Western for me? Freaking Brave Star. Okay? You bring me a game like Brave Star, or the Galaxy Rangers, or freaking, what is it, Saber Rider and the Star Sheriffs. A game like that, I'll play the shit out of that. Now, I'll play a Serenity game character too. And it is full on Space Western too, but again, I like it a little bit more crazier, you know, usually. But I can be also play a more grittier game and everything. Because one thing I didn't like about Firefly, for example, that, you know, they were on one of the first sci-fi shows that actually had, they wanted to do it like, that there's no sound in space, right? So, the Serenity spaceship, whenever there's a space scene with it flying around doing stuff, they're usually just getting away. Because the Serenity doesn't have weapons, okay? That bugged me too, you know. I get it, it's more hard science fiction, that's fine. But why can't we have space battles? Oh yeah, and there's no sound in space. And it just made it look weird, because then they usually had just their banjo guitar music in the background, which just looked weird. I know how science works. I know there's no sound in space, okay? But this is still a TV show, and we can still have some space battles, can't we? You know, because the special effects looked actually pretty good, and the few times there was sound, they were actually in the atmosphere. So I do appreciate that to one degree, but to the other degree, give me a fucking guy on a robot horse jumping from meteor to meteor, you know? I know, it's silly, it's stupid, but I like this kind of shit. I grew up in this kind of stuff, so it's cool, you know? And I know Firefly, I mean, I'll say this for Firefly, I agree, the 13 episodes, it should have been easily a season, a full season, or it could have ran, I think that this is a show that should have ran at least 4 seasons, but, because another show that I like, that I personally like more is, for example, Farscape, because they have aliens in it and everything, and of course Lex. I mean, I talked about Lex in my freaking podcast forever, so... And of course, Red Dwarf. I mean, I'm a huge sci-fi nerd fan. I mean, I like Firefly, but it's not the be-all, end-all. Okay, I've been watching spaceships being blown up in space and dudes shooting other dudes on other planets with ray guns for a long time now. So, but anyway, a space opera game. Oh, I'm open technically for everything, including Firefly. I'm open to a what is it? Matthew Dawkins said he actually would like to play a Farscape game. So who knows? I like the setting of Farscape. If I would run it, I would have the setting, but none of the main characters from the series. You know, and it would be probably, you know, it would be maybe even a similar setup, but with the players would just make new characters. So. Anyway, but next game, All Flesh Must Be Eaten, aka a game in a zombie apocalypse setting. Okay. Now, All Flesh Must Be Eaten is, I think, a Unisystem game, and it's basically this is a game I first saw years ago in the Pugnos Pro Game Geeks. Steve Weebly, I think. Maybe I say his name wrong now. He was one of the first guys I ever found to talk about tabletop RPGs. This is before we have all these awesome channels out there, you know. But one of the first guys was Steve Weebly, Matthew Dawkins, and then there was actually another guy even before that. Was the RPG channel, just simply. He's retired a while ago, but his videos are still up. Probably in the description or something I'll put it on, but we'll see. All Flesh Must Be a zombie apocalypse game in general. If you can run a good game with a different game system, then I'm all for it, you know. But I want to try All Flesh Must Be Eaten because I want to see how it holds up, you know. I want a game with some crunch, you know. I don't need it to have super complex, but I'm not against games that are a little bit, you know, that are rules lighter, you know. Hell, the game that I'm working on, action, you're a fighter, it's a pretty rules-light game. But I also like a little crunch and a little mechanics and in the fight and build a character and not just have it like, oh, the DM likes your decision or he doesn't like your decision. You know, it's more about, you know, sometimes you build your character correctly. And I know this is a big faux pas if you build your character in a way that he's a functioning character, but you ruin every roleplay situation. Oh, you are a min-maxer, you know, get out of here. You know, it's not quite like that, you know. But in general, I would like to play a zombies apocalypse game that can be different, because you basically have the theme, the setting. You have the setting, right? The theme, and you have the atmosphere. How is it? How is it like super serious, gritty, serious business, or is it more lighthearted in that direction, more cinematic? And then most I see games settings and how they're run in like a spectrum from like you have like super dark and serious, and it can be supernatural and fantasy. You know, that doesn't mean, you know, but still usually you have like, I don't know, like Matthew's description of the New World of Darkness games, like I think Oblivion, The Lost or something, or Wrath the Oblivion, that's the game, where it's like just really dark topics and everything, and you know, there's some supernatural elements, but you know, it's like really dark and gritty, and then you have like more cinematic stuff, even D&D fits in that, you know, and you got like the very cinematic to like silly, or actually Finder is pretty much a silly game. Not quite, it's almost like the cartoon games that they have, but it's not quite there, I think, but it's almost there, so. Although sometimes it's that, so I'll admit that. But I personally like those two. But anyway, again, I'm drifting off. All Flesh Must Be a zombie survival game. I'm up for it. I really like to play one. I want to see what kind of settings I get. And also I'm very open if the DM doesn't do the typical zombie, you know. You can be like the plant zombie from that one video game that was popular, Last of Us, I think. Or it could be like one of the zombies from The Night of the Creeps with the parasite aliens in them, and then shooting the head is not necessarily automatically a kill. You gotta actually destroy the parasite, you know, and so on. So or it's a magical zombie, you know, like an Army of Darkness. So there's not just one kind of zombie, okay? Like when people say, "Oh, the only zombie is the one you shoot," like for George R. Romero's Dawn of the Dead or something, where you shoot them in the head and they're going really slowly. Like, I like the running zombies from 27 Days Later. I don't know what people have a problem with that, because that movie was pretty cool, actually, because zombies are fictional. They're like anything fictional. It's like the director is like a DM. Often DMs are called directors in games, so they decide how their fictional creatures work, you know? I mean, Vampire Masquerade has their types of vampires, you know, multiple. Actually, every clan is very different. But in other games, vampires are different, you know, so that's one, you know, I could go on and on, but anyway, next game. Star Wars RPG, yes, and Anthony Holmes, a good friend of mine, he's working on a Star Wars game, and I hope, you know, to play in it, and because I have my character, and I'm really excited for that, you know, but that's been something I've been wanting to do forever, pretty much ever since I started RPG. Well, and I started playing RPGs, I didn't even know there was anything. I played the Dark Eye, or Das Schwarze Auge, the German most played RPG, pretty much, and when the first time I found out, oh, there's other RPGs with other settings and stuff, you know, I kind of knew that I've seen once in stores a sci-fi RPG, and I was really intrigued by it, but I thought every RPG was in a fantasy setting. That was just something where it was normal, you know. That was the status quo, you know. But once I remember GURPS was one of the first games where it blew my mind, where, oh, you can have all these possibilities, you know, you can play anything. And the funny thing is we ended up mostly playing fantasy setting anyway, so it's the most popular, you know. But we did play a couple of other things, so. The Star Wars RPG. Yes, I would really like to play, and I know there's a couple of ones out there. There's now the new Edge of the Galaxy. There's the D3 ones, the different versions. I'm up for anything. I want to play, of course I want to play a Jedi or a Sith, or I'm also up for playing a bounty hunter, of course. Now we're playing the game, once we start with Edge of the Empire with Anthony Holmes, I have a character already ready, so, and he's like some kind of I wanted to make basically a Klingon warrior, and I found like a race with pretty cool stats and everything, and he was like a kind of a wolf man, some shit like that. So I'm gonna play like a warrior like that, and he's gonna have like a code and everything. He's basically gonna be a Klingon because, you know, I'll add this still quick. Star Trek RPG, definitely, because I play a fucking Klingon. Kapla, yeah, you see me. Freaking Worf, that's where it's at. Number 3, martial arts game. Okay, martial arts, a game that is set in kind of a martial arts setting. Now it can be in the past, you know, with like samurais and stuff, and there's a game that might, you know, that probably will start soon. That will start soon, I think, and a good friend of mine is running it, and with like samurais and stuff, so that's cool. I did play one game so far. I did play a ninja in another game in my setting, but another friend ran it, but it was very simple. And I did play, again, a kind of a ninja. He was kind of a ninja, I think, but he was more like a samurai, but without a sword, if that makes sense. Because it's Sakai the Snake. Okay, that was in the one-shot by James Ford, which I think was a really fun game. It was in the Halloween event way back. And I had a ton of fun playing him. Like, I would play him again, but I want to play also, thinking in a modern setting, you know, something like Bloodsport, you know, or something like the 80s and 90s martial arts movies, you know, like a tournament. And of course, you cannot speak, you have to speak the unspeakable, of course, the Street Fighter RPG, but I have actually read that, and hilarious, I want to run that, you know, just for shits and giggles. Like, I want to do it. I want to see if it's really that bad. It's probably horrible, but just for shits and giggles. And I would love to play it too, but finding somebody to run this is like, is impossible. You know, it's one of those games. It's like Sensar or something, you know. It's maybe not that bad. Or what is it? World of Cinnabar or whatever, these really horrible. I mean, it might not be that bad, but still pretty bad, I hear. Plus, I heard like D20 Modern, there was some good books on martial arts, and there is actually for D20 Modern a really good book, which I would use if I would run one, you know. And I know a lot of people don't like D20 Modern. I haven't run or played yet, but what I read from the books, I do actually enjoy it, and I'm like, it's basically D&D, so you don't have to rethink that much, you know. So I'm like, like I'm thinking about that still. But, yeah. Or GURPS also. GURPS has a whole book, GURPS Martial Arts, so that would be a good choice for me if I would run it. But there's other books out there. My good friend Ben, he had a video about Quinn the Warring State. There's actually also the Legend of the Five Rings. There's different set in like feudal Japan or feudal China, or like the fantasy alternate versions where they took that and they just made it into a fantasy setting that works too. But I want to do it in like kind of like a, you know, like a street fight, you know, maybe, and then like a tournaments, and you could do this and you could do a lot of things with it. You could do it a little bit cheesier, a little bit cinematic, or you could do it very gritty and dark, and that would be fun too, I think. With something like Fight Club, maybe. I mean, you know, like when they actually fought, you know, and shit. Okay, and number 2, that is a little bit one that is a little bit obscure. Probably most of you won't know this game unless you come from a little country called Hungary. It's called Mágus, the Chronicle of Heroes. That's how it's translated, or Mágus a Kalandorok Krónikája in Hungarian. So, oh yeah, for my fellow Hungarians, egészségedre. This is a game I did play. on more than one occasion, but I would like to play it more. I think it's a fun game. It's a D100 kind of system. It went through some revisions. There was once a D20 version, which was... nobody liked that one. That is like the black sheep, really. And then the new version, the third version that was the last one that came out, was the older version's update, and that sounded like hotcakes. And then there was a copyright bullshit thing happening, so they couldn't reprint it. So I couldn't get a book, of course. So is there any Hungarians out there, you know? Ha vannak magyar szerepjátékosok, akkor én szívesen játszanék egy mágus játékot. That was Hungarian, where I said, if there's any Hungarians out there, I'm up for playing a game of Magus, Chronicle of Heroes. It would be cool. It's a fantasy setting. It's kind of a thing where I think that, you know, it's like, also of course, I would add to that still. I know it's more than 10 technically, but of course the Dark Eye. But I have the Dark Eye. I don't have Magus, you know, and it's been something that I would really like to do, kind of a bucket list thing. But I would like to play at least kind of a campaign, you know, with the character and see how the setting is and get to know it more. I know it somewhat, but really I only played like, I think, 2 sessions. One was for like an event thing, you know, where it was like a tournament, so to speak, where basically they had multiple DMs, multiple groups in the same, it was like they rented a place. They call it a tournament, and basically D&D did that too, where you have like a dungeon or like an adventure and see how far the characters get in a specific amount of time. And then we had multiple groups, and then we played it. I played like a warrior, and we were from like the evil Tauron, I think, one of the evil countries. I might get it wrong. It has been a very long time ago. But basically, we were exploring this island, and then shit happened, and yeah, and that was fun after the game to talk about what happened in the game. And that's something that people do to this day, although maybe not so much because like everybody just plays video games now, so it's like, not everybody, but I know that Magus is still being played in Hungary. You know, it's still, I think the most popular games in Hungary, at least as far as I knew, was definitely Magus. Of course, Vampire the Masquerade was very popular, and is still, I think. Also D&D, and also Shadowrun, but there was other games released, but I think those are the most played ones, I think. That might have changed, probably did. But I think Magus is one of the only Hungarian RPG that is still being played today. Because there was multiple made, but this is the only one that I knew that anybody played, and is still playing today. So, I'll definitely play that. And of course, the equivalent German one, the Dark Eye or das Schwarze Auge, I have played and I have DM'd, but it has been a long time, and I would like to play it more than I would like to. I mean, I would love to run it, but I would like to play it. I like the system, and I definitely like the setting a lot. The setting is, for me, that's like pretty much how I knew fantasy. I mean, I'll talk about the Dark Eye in a separate video, because I can talk tons. This was basically my introduction to role-playing games, to be honest. And then number 1 would be a cross-humping dimensional setting. Like sometimes it's like a specific game. Here on the list, sometimes it's a setting. Imagine basically like sliders, okay? You would have a group, and I would like to be this for like a really long campaign, maybe even like kind of a never-ending one in a sense, where we would have, and I ran games like this, you know, I ran dimension hopping games, and I found a way how you could have players come and go, you know, and I will talk about this again in a separate video, but I would like to play one, you know, I would really like, because I have a couple of character concepts that would be really cool for a setting like this, which is basically any setting potentially, and there could be also multiple systems used, because you can convert characters. It's kind of it's sometimes a huge deal, a big deal, a lot of times it's a big, I mean, I haven't even done it yet, you know, I have read about how to convert a character, just in case, because I had some ideas, and I have run dimension hopping games, but what I'm talking about is playing a dimension hopping game for a long time, and having then the characters go to different worlds, whatever, It would be even cool to have the same characters but have the DM switch with every world, you know? Maybe even the setting if necessary, but I would prefer, like, I don't know if we would use GURPS, for example, because that's a good generic setting, and system, and then just switch the settings, because then I can just take my character one-to-one into the next setting, and then the DM does his setting. If it's a homebrew setting, I mean, for example, I love the Hex World idea from Tim Harper. And that's another one I would love to play in, because it would be something similar to that, you know? And that is something like, because I've been DMing a lot, and I enjoy DMing, but there's a lot of work, and there is payoff to it too. But sometimes the payoff is, you know, it's just like, you sit down sometimes for hours, for days, sometimes for weeks or even months, and you think out a really good campaign, and you write it down, you plan stuff, and then your players, of course, shit all over it, kind of. Don't take this the wrong way. Sometimes they do, sometimes not. It's like they do their own thing, you know? So you gotta always think about how you're gonna motivate them, but you also gotta keep them entertained in a while, but you don't wanna babysit them. It's like you're doomed if you do, you're doomed if you don't. There's never a right answer to DMing. I think there's a lot of tips, video tips about DMing that's floating around. I think one of the best advices, the best things that I learned is, for example, for me, is that I have a problem if it's a set setting usually, because I'm always worried that I kind of will ruin the setting. If I will run a set setting, I will just say this is an alternate version, and shit happens differently. If you knew that this king did this at this time, because this is gonna be always a problem, like especially like Game of Thrones game, like a Song of Ice and Fire game, or like a Supers game set in the DC universe. And I had that shit happen. Oh, Superman doesn't act that way, or like the Lannisters wouldn't be like that because the rule of Kingdom of Amalur had written in this book that, you know, shit like that. It's the fucking it's the setting Nazis, just like the rule Nazis. They're annoying. And I'm not saying that if you have a good group, then they're fine with it. Or maybe even, greatly, is if they're not familiar with that one. You know, because it's cool if they like how you're doing it, you know. It's everything great, and I think it's possible. But, you know, I would be more open to play in an established setting than run one. It's just a little bit more to worry about, because I'm already worrying about a lot of things when I run a game. And if I have an original setting, I can always say, well, yeah, this is the case, you know. Oh, yeah, you have, they have now guns in this setting. Now they just invented flintlocks or some shit like that. Or psionics exist in this world, or they don't exist, you know. Or resurrection spells don't exist unless you do this and that, you know. Or like, I can come up with shit on the fly and I can always change it. It's my setting. It's malleable. So anyway, cross-hopping dimensional game setting, basically like Sliders. I would love to play that. And I would think it would be cool also if you would have, like, every session would be like one world, so to speak. I mean, sometimes it won't be one session, of course, but like that you would have one world, one DM, right? And then you would travel to the next one, and then you would get a different DM. And sometimes you could even have one of the players be a DM and say, oh, their character is floating in the astral void because when he was jumping, he did something wrong, and you gotta find him now, or shit like that. So those are the games that I would like to play. So if you are interested in running one of these games, you can write me here on YouTube. You can also write me here in the YouTube RPG Brigade, where I'm going to post this, or any of the websites I'm involved in, or also this is the email you can write me to, is the gamingbeast@gmail.com. That is the gamingbeast, one word, @gmail.com. And yeah, I'm open for it. And there's much more games that I would like to play. You know, much more. You know, Technically, I'm open for pretty much anything. Pretty much, not everything, but pretty much anything. You know. You just give me a little bit of time, and I'll make a character, or we make the character together. Especially if it's a system I'm not familiar with, I don't have, or something. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed this video, Televisions, and yeah. For Deathmark of Doom, to all my friends in the YouTube RPG Brigade, and the Stale Time, the Next Round, Mondo Cool, Stupid Ass Geekery, Simply Gaming, and everybody else. Anyway. For Deathmark of Doom, Televisions.